Well, good afternoon, class. It's about 5 o'clock my time on Monday. It's March 12th. So, welcome again to the short mini lecture. Try to keep it under 5 minutes. Want to say everyone's doing a great job so far, so appreciate all the attentiveness in the course. The discussion board forums are great. The dialogue's fantastic. So, keep up the great work, and hopefully, everybody's having a good time learning about some healthcare admin stuff. So I know it's a little bit different than the clinical stuff y'all are used to, but nonetheless, you'll find this information important as you go forward, and especially as if you get into some leadership positions and you're talking with administrators, or you yourself might be an administrator one of these days, especially now as they're looking at administrators more and more. They have a desire to hire administrators with clinical background. So again, hopefully everybody's having a good time learning some of this stuff. I know it's probably not the most fun thing to read about, but it's important nonetheless. So for this week, we're going to talk about integrated delivery systems and HMOs, right? Many people have heard of managed care, what managed care is. It's firmly entrenched in our healthcare system, right? Other countries have even adopted some aspects of our managed care system. Not of our system, but of our managed care plan and designs. Managed care really started to become successful because there was this failure of fee-for-service, right? So that fee-for-service was the more we do, the more we get paid, right? More volume, more money. But costs became somewhat uncontrolled, and the cost of healthcare really spiraled out of control. Not that it's doing much better today, but earlier tighter controls of managed care were relinquished because managed care it became slightly unpopular due to some of the controls that it placed on patients. And patients really felt that managed care became more of this denier of care more than this acceptance of care, if you will. But managed care, really the intent was to focus on quality, cost cutting, and efficiencies. But literature out there there's some questions about its long-term ability to control costs. Because there's obviously you can look at kind of the healthcare system kind of moving forward, and there just wasn't that extensive amount of cost that were projected never occurred. But why managed care? Well, employers, if you remember from history, starting back in World War II, employers really became active purchasers of insurance. And before managed care, there really was no incentive from anybody to manage the delivery of services, particularly with the payments made to providers and such. And so managed care kind of got in that business of kind of this all-inclusive method to deliver care. And providers really desired to be paid on a fee-for-service, and who wouldn't, right? The more work I do, the more I get paid. And the delivery of healthcare, of course, spiraled out of control. Because in the beginning of healthcare in our country, providers were really paid pretty passively. They would provide the insurance company with a bill, and they would receive reimbursement for it. But managed care really was designed to limit the quantity of care delivered and the amount of reimbursement that was provided. And it gained significant power. 1973, I have President Nixon up there. He was, his administration was the architect behind the HMO Act of 1973, had a plan to enroll a certain amount of enrollees, didn't enroll nearly half as much as they had projected. But it did start to gain significant power. But once they started enrolling large segments of the population, managed care organizations really became these powerhouses. And this resulted in organizational consolidation of providers. And so we saw the freestanding hospitals and solo practitioners kind of slowly start to wane away and be replaced by medical systems and physician group practices. That leads us on to integrated delivery systems, right? So kind of these a holistic approach to providing care. Really considered a vertically integrated health service network. We kind of talked about this last week a little bit. I had a slide on it. Physicians, hospitals, post-acute services, sometimes even health insurance make up integrated delivery systems. And I think I shared the definition last week of integrated delivery systems, kind of defined as that network of healthcare providers and organizations that provides or arranges care in a coordinated manner to this defined population. And this defined population has to be willing to be held clinically and fiscally accountable for clinical outcomes, not the population, but the integrated delivery system and of the health population that they serve. So it's this holistic approach to medicine where this group of providers comes together, if you will, to provide care to a set population of people. really became popular in the 2000s. Often occurs based on service consolidation through vertical and/or should be horizontal integration strategies. My apologies. And there you go. So kind of a repeat. But then that leads us on to accountable care organizations, just a little bit different than integrated delivery systems. ACOs, or groups of doctors and hospitals, they really are focused on the chronically ill, and mainly for Medicare patients right now. They are financially and medically responsible for the patients they serve. Now, there are some challenges to ACOs. They have considerable startup costs. It can also be difficult for physicians to change their habits. Sometimes, the habits aren't as, when we talk about care and we talk about efficiencies and we talk about reimbursement. There are liability risks with ACOs. As again, another holistic type approach to healthcare, being able to review the entire patient's medical record could be an issue in an ACO, right? And so we could miss something, and that can result in a liability risk. And they are really designed to increase quality without limiting choices for patients. And so that can be a real challenge for ACOs, not to mention as a startup cost, like I said. So ACOs can be very expensive in the very beginning. But the hope is that ACOs will one day be that answer to healthcare. Now, literature, I just read an article not too long ago where it says ACOs should not be looked at as a silver bullet. ACOs are a little bit different than integrated delivery systems because ACOs do rely a lot on health information technology and using data to be able to make evidence-based decisions and such, something that IDSs didn't do too much of. But that's all. I try to keep it under 5 minutes. We're a little longer than that. I know these are brief little segments, but if you have questions about anything, reach out to me. Again, great work going forward. Continue doing great work, and we'll see you in the classroom. Have a good one. Ciao.